In this video I am going to talk about the Intel Core M3-6530 processor, a little bit of essential details and what it is and what its potentials and so on and so forth. The first thing is that it's a skylake processor, Intel's latest launch, that's called formerly skylake, but it's still known more as a skylake processor that was launched just recently in third quarter 2015, and this processor is still not in the market, but we should start seeing it in the very thin notebooks, netbooks and so on and so forth. The key thing is it's very low power consumption. It has a TDP rating of 4.5 watt, which means you need a cooling arrangement to dissipate heat only up to 4.5 watts, but it can be configured up if you want more performance, or it can be configured down to 3.8 watts, and that will mean that it's almost no fan cooling. You may still see some small fan or something like that. It could be very good processor for something like compute sticks, things that Intel has brought up, and something which can hook up as a HDMI to your television, and there are a lot of applications that you can think of in 3.8 or 4.5 watts, because typical ARM processors, they consume 2 watt without any heat sink, and if you can have a nice heat sink, just a heat sink, no fan, you can go up to 4.5 watt or potentially 3.8 watts. So that's the key feature of this, and that has been made possible by the 14 nanometer lithography. The earlier Haswell was in 22 nanometer, and it could not go as low. But the Core M processor in general, they are all very low power processors, and essentially the difference between this Core M processor, which are regular processors, and the Atom processors or Bay Trail processors in terms of power consumptions has the difference is no more. That is still its price competitive, very substantially high at $281. The Atom processors are like $100 and under. The key difference is, even though it has low power, but performance wise, if you look at it, it's a dual core quad hyper threading, and you look at this, the max turbo frequency is 2.2 gigahertz. That's pretty fast. I mean, even though its base clock frequency is 900 megahertz, its turbo clock is very high, and that's this combination of these two is very practical, and that's how Intel is able to bring its TDP down to 4.5 watts, and that's a very intelligent design, because normally you want to keep your clock frequency very low. It runs nice and cool. You are not doing anything substantial except typing something in the Word, and then you suddenly open your browser to upload your documents, things like that. You have a temporary demand of high processing power, and then it ramps its clock frequency to 2.2 gigahertz for like 10, 15 or whatever number of seconds, and then once you have the browser open, you type something, which again clock frequency goes down. So that is a very practical design. So these are some of the things you need to keep in mind when you compare this processor with other processors. You have an integrated graphics, that's HD graphics 515, slightly slower than the regular HD graphics 520, but it's still pretty good. You needs to compromise with the low power with the max performance, and you can get almost a full HDMI 1.4 support directly off the processor at 4096 by 2304. So I like this processor. You have a PCI Express 3.0, a bump up from PCI Express 2.0. You can hook up a nice SSD memory, and you can do plenty of things. So the only thing is the price is still at slightly higher edge at $281, but I believe I would like to see that to be in something like $150. But Intel has, I think, other Core M processor that is lower price point. I hope this description helps you. Before I go, I would like to compare this processor with something like Core i3 in the Intel's Haswell series. Let's say Core i3-4020Y series. That's priced about the same, $281, and let's see what you get. The first thing, the difference between these two is the Core i3 is an 11.5 watts processor. This one is a 4.5 watts. So really there is nothing this thing to compare, but you can see the base clock at 900 megahertz versus 1.5 gigahertz and the turbo clock at 2.2 gigahertz. This one, Core i3, has no turbo clock, so performance wise has a dynamic clock frequency, so you should get about the same performance as Core i3 at a substantial lower performance. I don't have a fastmax number, but as this processor gets launched, you can see its benchmark score. The Core M processor also has a higher cache that adds to its performance, so there is nothing not to like about this processor, except that if its price could be competitive enough. Thanks for taking a look.